Okay, the topic we are going to present is poverty as a group two. So I will start with the definition and then the type. And for that we have four members, and I will mention my name and each of presenter when they are coming later, then they will mention their name. So my name is Akech. So when we come to poverty have a different definition, but mostly the topic is based in Kenya. So I will give according to the research, mostly about how people have been talking about poverty here in Kenya. And for that, let me give definition according to World Bank. It is state. Poverty refers to a state of deprivation in which individual or household lack the finance, material, and social resources necessary to meet a minimum standard of the living. That is according to World Bank 2023. It includes the ability to access the food, the shelter, clothing, healthcare, and education. That is what World Bank say. And now I will go to what some researchers have said in Kenya. In Kenya, they define that poverty is defined as inability of individual or household to afford a minimum bucket of food or services required for human survival and development. That is Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics 2023. So those are that is the definition. That is how they define it. Poverty line in Kenya is based on the income an individual and the cost of essential commodities. People living below these lines are unable to meet their basic need. The Kenyan scholars have been expanded this understanding, and the Kenyan scholars is according to the Kenyan Institute of Public Policy and Research and Analysis 2020 2021 define poverty is a persistent deprivation of multidynamics nature and severe in depth, not only about the low income, but is also inability of capability to manifest through the hunger and save water, illiteracy, for Alice and social marginalization. Similarly, mm, okay, let me come to the type. That is the definition of the poverty. So let me come to the type of poverty. The first type is absolute. Absolute is referred to the condition in which individual or household lack basic resources necessary for survival. That is according to World Bank. That is how they define it. When we see it in perspective of Kenya, they say that is most prevalent in rural areas where people depend in sustaining agriculture and informal labor. That is KNBS 2023. Those affected often struggle to access food, water, and shelter and healthcare. That is absolute. Another one is relative poverty. Relative poverty is measured by inequality within the society. It occurs when individuals earn significantly less than the average income in the community. It leading to social exclusions and limit participation in normal life. That is UNDP program 2023. When we look in the perspective of Kenya, this form of poverty is evident of this disparities between the rural and urban areas, between the different economic classes, where we see that there are poor and there are rich. Another type of poverty is rural poverty. This is dominated especially in the other side of semi-arid and arid land in Kenya, where households are dependent on small-scale farming and patriotism. These areas are from poor infrastructures, low education level, and vulnerability to drought, fraud, floods. This poverty is often deep and multidimensional, trapping families across the generations. That is according to KIPP RA 2021. So that is another type of, that is the third one. Fourth one is urban poverty. It's rising rapidly. Urbanization, unemployment, and the high cost of living in the cities like Nairobi and Mombasa. Many low-income residents live in the formal settlement, such as Kariba, where the household and sanitation and the health care are inadequate. That is according to University of St. Paul Journal Research 2023. The fifth one is chronic poverty. Chronic poverty is a long-term and persistent, often passed from generation to another generation. It, it is defined by enduring deprivations in income, education, health, and opportunities. That is according to KRPPRA 2021. It describes chronic poverty as severe and multidimension that persists over the time. It affects and it marginalizes communities such as pastoralists, women, and elderly people in the region, like Turkana. So it affects, that is according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics 2023. The last one is temporary poverty. This kind of poverty is referred to the short-term economics or hardship which can be caused by shock, such as a drought, loss of job, or illness. It is like the chronic poverty or the other type of poverty. It can be improved once the condition is stabilized or individual receives support from one another. However, repeated shocks may push the household into the long-term incapability situation. So those are the type of poverty and the definition. I will stop there to allow the new presenter to come.
My name is Kevin Simiyu. I'm going to tackle about the causes of poverty. The causes of poverty, I'm going to mention some points here. One of the points being unemployment and underemployment. Many people in Kenya and Africa struggle to find stable and well-paying jobs because some of the job market often can't absorb the large number of young people entering each year. Many are stuck in informal jobs with low pay and no job security. That leads to persistent poverty. I'll move to the next point, whereby there is limited access to education. Education being very important in our lives as human beings, it's a key pathway or out of poverty. But many children in Kenya and Africa at large don't get quality education due to factors like school fees, distance, and inadequate facilities. Without education, people have few skills, which limits their chances of securing better jobs. The next point is poor health care and diseases. Poor health care and diseases is a very big cause of poverty, since the high rates and the number of people who get involved in sickness It brings them down because they become ill, like HIV and AIDS and other illness. They reduce people's ability to work and increase medical expenses, especially in Kenya and most of the countries. The next point I will is inadequate infrastructure. Poor infrastructure such as roads, electricity, and clean water restrict economic development, especially in rural Kenya and other parts of Africa. Lack of infrastructure makes it hard for business to grow and for people to access markets, education, and healthcare facilities, and other things. This keeps many in poverty. The next point is political instability and corruption. Political unrest, conflicts, and corruption in Kenya and across Africa often divert resources away from development and social services. Corruption especially limits the effectiveness of poverty reduction programs and creates inequality. Since most of these government officials they tend to rely to help themselves more than taking care of other people's. The very last point is climate change and environmental challenges. In many African countries, including Kenya, it depends heavily on agriculture, where we get food from, which is vulnerable to droughts, floods, and changing weather patterns in counties like Turkana, where they receive very low rainfall. That makes them very poor in agriculture, but at least good in rearing of animals, but still they get a challenge of water and other equipments. So the climate change reduces crop yields, threaten food security, and increase poverty, especially in rural farming communities. Thank you, and therefore I will leave to the next presenter. Thank you.
I'm Brian Kipkoech. I'm going to tackle effects of poverty. And the first effect is hunger and poor health. One of the most visible effects of poverty is hunger and poor health. In many Kenyan regions such as Turkana, Marsabit, Garissa, and Baringo, families often go without enough food due to drought and failed harvest. Malnutrition is common, especially among children. It leads to startled growth, low immunity, and a higher risk of diseases such as malaria, diarrhea, and tuberculosis. In Ethiopia and Somalia, food insecurity caused by poverty and climate change has forced millions to rely on food aid. Poor nutrition weakens people's ability to work and traps them in the cycle of poverty. So hunger and poor health are both causes and consequences of poverty. They feed into each other. Number two, school dropouts and low educational levels. Another major effect of poverty is school dropout and low literacy levels. When families can barely afford food, education becomes a luxury. Parents often withdraw children from school to help with farming, house chores, or small jobs. In Kenya, rural areas and informal settlements such as Kibera, Mathare, and Mukuru kwa Jenga face high dropout rates. Many girls drop out because of period poverty. They lack access to sanitary pads or due to early marriages caused by financial hardships. In countries like Nigeria, South Sudan, and Malawi, poverty has also forced many children into child labor, limiting their chances for a better future. Without education, the cycle of poverty continues because these young people cannot access well-paying jobs later in life. Number three is crime and insecurity. Poverty is closely linked to crime and insecurity. When young people lack opportunities and hope, some turn to illegal activities such as just to survive. In Kenya, urban areas, especially in informal settlements, some youth join gangs or engage in theft, robbery, or drug abuse. This not only affects their lives but also increases insecurity in cities like Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu. Across Africa, similar problems occur. For example, in Nigeria, poor and jobless youth have been easily recruited into extremist groups like Boko Haram, This shows how poverty can contribute to violence and instability across the continent. Number 4 is pure housing and sanitation. Poverty also leads to poor housing and lack of sanitation. Many low-income families live in overcrowded informal settlements or rural neighborhoods with limited access to clean water or proper toilets. In Kibera, which is one of Africa's largest slums, most people live in small iron sheet houses. Dozens of families may share one toilet, and clean water is scarce. This results in increase in diseases like cholera, typhoid, and dysentery, especially during rainy seasons. Similar living conditions exist in other African countries such as Lagos, Kampala, and Dar es Salaam, where rapid urbanization has replaced the ability to provide decent housing for everyone. Number 5 is slow economic growth. Poverty also slows down a country's economic growth. When a large portion of the population is poor, productivity decreases because people lack access to education, technology and capital. In Kenya, poor regions like Turkana, Mandera, and Wajir have very limited economic activity because of poor infrastructure, insecurity, and lack of investment. Across Africa, poverty fo- forces many countries to rely heavily on foreign aid and loans instead of building self-sustaining industries. This slows development and makes it difficult to reduce unemployment or improve living standards. Number 6 is increased disease burden. Poor communities often suffer from diseases due to inadequate healthcare and sanitation. In Kenya, low-income families struggle to afford medical care. Diseases like malaria, HIV, and AIDS, tuberculosis, and cholera are more common among the poor because of poor living conditions and limited access to hospitals. In West Africa, poverty worsens the spread of the Ebola virus because many people lack hospitals, doctors, and proper public health education. This shows how poverty and weak health system can turn small outbreaks into deeply epidemics. Number 7. Social inequality and marginalization. Poverty depends social inequality and marginalization. In Kenya, the gap between the rich and the poor is very wide. We can clearly see the contrast between wealthy areas like Rwanda and Karen and poor neighborhoods like Kibera. In many African countries, certain communities, such as pastoralists, ethnic minorities, or people in remote regions, are often left behind in national development plans. This inequality leads to frustration and slows down national change and progress. That's the end of my presentation. I can now welcome the next presenter.
Okay, so my name is Steve Varon, and I'll be taking you under the solutions to poverty in Africa, specifically in Kenya. So, first of the solution, we have improved education and job skills. Investing in quality education and technical training helps people secure better jobs. And in Kenya, we have programs like competency-based curriculum, that is the CBC, and technical and vocational education training. These institutions equip youth with practical skills for employment and entrepreneurship. Another solution we have supporting farmers and small businesses. Agriculture employs most Africans, especially in Kenya. We have initiatives like the Hustler Fund and the Kenya Livestock Insurance Program, which provide loans, protect farmers and small traders, helping them grow and secure better living standards. We also have building better roads and infrastructure. We find that good infrastructure connects rural farmers to markets and improves access to jobs and services. Projects such as the Standard Gauge Railways, the SGR, and the Lapset Corridor has boosted the trade and economic growth in Kenya. And we also have a solution that entails it providing social support, such as the Inua Jamii. The Inua Jamii cash transfer program has supported the elderly, the orphans, and people with disabilities, helping vulnerable people and groups to meet their basic needs and live with dignity. And as I conclude, poverty being a global issue, it can be handled and solved uh, if these solutions I've stated are put into practice. And as we look in Kenya, these solutions are already in practice. Yeah, and as I conclude, poverty can be solved mostly in these African countries and the whole of the world at large. Yeah, that's our presentation, and this is the end of the presentation. Yeah, thank you.